friends, it's Sarah here, and today I thought I would like to do a video for you about my recent journey through the Iron Pentacle. Iron Pentacle is a 6-week reclaiming witchcraft core class. Well, for me, I just went through it for 6 weeks. For other people, it can depends how they go through the workshop. Last year I endeavoured to do an online course which went over 6 months, but I wasn't able to complete it because Iron Pentacle is the work of the shadow, and it really friggin' triggered me last year, and it was already enough having moved to the other side of the world and to have to get up close and personal with things on the computer. It was a bit weird for me. This was I wasn't used to being vulnerable with people I didn't know on the internet. And I guess from coming and hanging out here in YouTube land and having to communicate to my friends through Skype in this 1.5 years since we've lived on the other side of the world, I've gotten better at it. I'm getting better at being vulnerable on screen. Anyway, so I managed to finish this Iron Pentacle class last Wednesday, and this one was in person, so I would go to the place where one of the facilitators ran the workshop and with a group of other participants. So I wanted to share their experience with you. I want to share what I'm learning about reclaiming, because it's a really interesting tradition of magic. It's very different to other styles of witchcraft that I have practiced in the past, and I'm really getting a lot out of it. So let's jump right in. So I guess to start off, I want to be very clear and say that this is obviously no expert video on the Iron Pentacle. This is just my some things that I gathered for it. I'm still learning and still a baby in the journey of reclaiming witchcraft, so these are just my thoughts and feelings on it. And the beautiful thing about shadow magic is that every single person's experience of the exact same class is going to be completely different, but really that's probably the case in everything in life, right? So Iron Pentacle, where do we even begin? So what is Iron Pentacle, I guess? So I first came across the concept of Iron Pentacle in one of my most favourite witchcraft books, which is the Evolutionary Witchcraft by Thorn Coyle. I read this book in 2015 maybe? I can't remember. Anyway, it was so good when I read it, and it has changed my life reading it and putting Thorn's work into practice has been it's really added so much depth to my personal witchcraft practice, and I friggin' love her writing. And so she speaks in here about Iron Pentacle. So Iron Pentacle first came from the fairy tradition, which is F-E-R-I, and this was created by Victor and Cora Anderson. It's an American style of traditional folk witchcraft, and from there, Starhawk, you probably read her books if you're pagan, she was a fairy initiate, and from training in fairy she then branched off and created reclaiming. So it's how all these link in together. Reclaiming's very linked with fairy, and so this book is very much about fairy witchcraft practices from Thorn's perspective, and that's when I fell in love with that style of practice. It was the first time that witchcraft for me in a book really resonated. It felt gutsy and deep and real, and it really encouraged me to be the best human I can be, to not just want to escape off into my fairy land, but actually realize that I've incarnated in here to be a human, and you know, this is the role. Like, my gift to the fairies, Victor said to Thorn one day, your greatest gift you can do for the fairies is to be the best human you can be. And so the work of fairy and the work of reclaiming is about coming into harmony, into sovereignty, into empowerment with yourself. And reclaiming also adds in a lot of social justice and activism into their soup pot as well. And so it's really friggin' cool. And it seems to be that all the reclaiming witches that I've met so far have been really grounded. They're doing their work, they're getting their self in alignment, and they're powerful and intelligent and passionate about doing good work in the world. They're really inspiring to be around. So I, after reading this book, we moved here, and I went to a cloud catcher witch camp, a reclaiming witch camp, last April? I think so. And that's when I met my first pile of human reclaiming witches and heard about this thing called Iron Pentacle again. So Thorn talks about it in Evolutionary Witchcraft, and I went through it in the book when she talks about it, but really, no. I had no clue, really, beyond the complexity and the capacity that it has to really nail you. Was found when you work in groups and we have people who have gone through the practice of Iron Pentacle beforehand. To be able to facilitate that for you is a really powerful thing, because you've got people you can talk to, you've got guides, and it just seems it really worked for me, for my learning style and for my magic style. It was really good to have people who have done it before. So, and here we go. So this is another book on the Iron Pentacle by Jane Meredith and G'day Palmer, and I was lucky enough to meet them when I went to their Cloudcatcher Witch Camp, and this would be who I would do my online course with. And this is excellent. We worked through this when we were doing the online workshop, and so if you are interested in learning more about Iron Pentacle, I highly recommend that you get a copy of both of these. And really, if you're interested in witchcraft, just read this book anyway. That's my recommendation if anyone wanted a favourite book. And to get deeper into Iron Pentacle specifically, this is brilliant, and it has anecdotes from both the authors, and in true reclaiming style, there's your two facilitators sharing the journey with you. And I think that's something that I really like about reclaiming, is that you've always got two facilitators sharing your workshops and classes and stuff that you do. So far, all the reclaiming stuff I've done, that has been the case. I don't know if it's always the case, but so far for the core classes that I've done, elements and iron, and even at the witch camp, it was always in groups. And I think that really helps with reclaiming's lack of hierarchy, and it just feels like real sharing. And anyway, tangent. Sorry. So let me read to you, because I love reading to you, just a little snippet about what Iron Pentacle is. So you guys, if you've never heard of it before, there's a great introduction in this book. And so let me read a little snippet of it for you. It says, the Iron Pentacle is a magical tool of experiential spirituality. It arises from the work of two contemporary and connected traditions of witchcraft, Anderson Fairy and reclaiming. Displayed as a 5-pointed star, the Iron Pentacle can be experienced through energetic work, personal process, and social analysis. It is a revolutionary magical construct that has evolved to be fundamentally related to the human body in the reclaiming tradition. The 5 points of the Iron Pentacle are held within the body's extremities, head, feet, and hands. These points relate to each other, moving through a pentagram of energy, from the head down to the right foot to the left hand across to the right hand down to the left foot, and finally the left foot up to the head. The points are then encircled with the circle touching each point and becoming a pentacle. However, the energy does not stop there or anywhere. It's in continual motion. Each point of the Iron Pentacle has a simple name. In order, they are sex, pride, self, power, and passion. The pentacle is worked with sex in the head, pride in the right foot, self in the left hand, power in the right hand, and passion in the left foot. Sex, pride, self, power, and passion are potent words in Western culture. They point to our longings, our fears, and our shadow. They haunt us. Who as a child was not rebuked for being selfish or proud? Which of us has not at some stage struggled with our sexuality? Who has not longed to express their passion, at the same time cautious of being swept away by it? How can the themes of power and powerlessness leave any of us untouched? Concepts of original innocence, paradise, sovereign, and authentic self, and the reclamation of our divine origins underlie the working of the Iron Pentacle. Sex, pride, self, power, and passion all have complex and layered meanings, and their exploration and interpretation is part of the work of Iron Pentacle. There are many aspects of judgment, understanding, and relationship to these 5 points, both as inequalities and as external forces. On hearing their names, we have immediate reactions. We do not have to study them first or seek connection. They are related. They are part of us. The names of these points are not in ancient Hebrew, Sanskrit, or Gaelic, open to a variety of understandings and misinterpretations. They are in English. For those whose primary language is not English, we advise working with words from your own language, as cultural interpretation fuels so much of our understanding. The Iron Pentacle is a tool for reawakening our essential humanity and our sovereign selves. The star and the circle, the 2 symbols that make up the Iron Pentacle, are ancient and refer to our infinity of being and our origins in the stars. That we and our whole planet are made of stardust. The Iron Pentacle falling into the earth is a symbol for the origin of the witch's fire. It parallels other traditional witchcraft legends about the power of witches having come from the stars. By mass, iron is the most common element on earth, and it is a mineral found in every cell of the human body. In the formation and development of the life of a star, it is the progression from silicon through to iron that spells its death in less than a second. An iron star is almost an oxymoron, or maybe it is a magical act of transformation. It no sooner exists than ceases to exist. The end result of this development of iron at the centre of a star is either a neutron star or a black hole. There is no evidence that the naming of the Iron Pentacle is related to this science, but it does provoke interesting thoughts. In working with the Iron Pentacle, we open ourselves to a more intimate experience of who we are. We reveal and behold our own deep divinity. The Iron Pentacle is a potent way to ignite awareness within ourselves and learn to act with the balance and integrity that comes with working directly with our sex, pride, self, power, and passion. Through working the Iron Pentacle, we come more deeply into our humanity and discover pathways of cleansing, release, transformation, and initiation on both personal and societal levels. And it goes on, and I could read to you forever because I actually really like reading out loud. Can you tell that I was a school teacher once? So here is the Iron Pentacle with the points. And what I came to learn as I went through the course is that each point on the Iron Pentacle is also related to an element and related to this I statement, as we call in and reclaim that point for ourselves. And so each week of the 6 weeks was focused on a point at a time. And we started off, the first workshop was with sex. And so I had to confront what sex was for me. And that's a huge topic, isn't it? Like, really, that's a really big one to just nail it right at the beginning. And so I just went in there just like, that's so vulnerable, and it was great, and it was beautiful to show up. We cast a circle around ourselves. We called in the Star Goddess and the Iron Pentacle magic, and we flowed the energy through us. And I think because it was within that safe container of the magic circle, and that we were all in it together, and even the two facilitators were in it with us as well, there was this real kinship that happened, and an honest sharing. There were definitely tears. It was definitely bloody uncomfortable, and most of the time I didn't want to go. But I did go. And it was great. It was it had so many breakthroughs for me. What I came to realize with sex for me in the Iron Pentacle was that it is about connection. And as sex is the point of spirit, if we're looking at it here, that made sex make so much more sense than this thing that has become, unfortunately, in my experience, sex has been something that has not been fabulous, unfortunately. It's been quite corrupted and, you know. Yeah. So, what connecting it in with spirit, and literally connecting it in with spirit, what it did for me was help me look at life force, help me look at how do I connect with others, how do I connect with myself, how do I reclaim back sex in a way that empowers me. And what is it essentially? It is connection. And then I thought about it like, sex is, what it came down for me was, sex is sunshine on leaves. It's photosynthesis. Like, and feeling sunshine kiss my body, that was a really beautiful moment where I could feel the empowerment and beauty of sex rather than shame or abuse or hurt or that sort of thing. Very interesting. It's so layered and so convoluted, and I know that every time I do Iron Pentacle now, something else is going to come up for each point, I'm sure. We ran around the pentacle in the fairy style. So the next one we went to was self. So we went around this way, journeying each week. Sometimes when you do it in reclaiming style, you'll go from sex straight down to pride. But we were a bit more, it felt more gentle to go to self. And so the week of self, we reclaimed back those parts of ourselves that perhaps we'd lost along the way, or perhaps we'd forgotten about them or let them go. And we really had, what it came down to for me was self-esteem, self-worth, and also getting my sense of self from my inner well-being rather than looking for external validation. That was really empowering. We had a task of giving each other a word on a post-it note. When we looked at each other in the workshop, just one word, put it on the post-it note and stick it on them. And I went away with this group of really beautiful words about me. They were so beautiful that they were hard to look at in a way. It was just like, oh, but there were two that were, they weren't horrible, but they were definitely critiques. And it wasn't anything I hadn't ever said to myself before, but they really friggin' hurt. And what I noticed with myself over the week of being in self was that I focused on those two and it negated the 10 others that were beautiful. And I realized how I do that in life. I'll focus on, if someone says something negative, I will focus on that. I will focus on that so hard, and it will get so hurt by it and will not be able to focus on the good at all. In fact, it almost, there's no good ever. It's just all the negative things are too loud and take over. And I'm sure many people struggle with criticism, and I really realized that that was a huge thing for me. And so I I took my post-it notes that I had kept in my magic journal over the week, and I took the two that were triggering me, and I turned them into peace creams. And then while I was at it, I decided to put all of them into peace creams, because I realized through running iron and being present with myself over the week that it didn't matter anyone's thoughts, good or bad, whatever words people want to roll at me. I cannot derive my sense of self anymore from the words of other people. It must come from within. And it was such a moment making this, and this song went through my head. Have you heard of Cat Stevens' Peace Train? So that song starts going through my head, except I was singing Peace Cranes, and so I played this song afterwards, and it was actually perfect. It was about the peace trains coming from, and something about coming out of the shadows, and here comes the peace train, and he's got lots of hope. And I was like, yes, this is the song for self. So here are my peace creams. The next week saw us move down to passion. It's beautiful that passion was water, and it is about eye care. And so we had to look at what we were passionate about, and ways that perhaps we've dampened down our passion, ways we've forgotten about our passion, ways we avoid our passion, ways sometimes passion can go too far and lead into obsession. And we did a big spell in the end of the workshop, and had this big bowl of water in the center of the room, and we were howling and singing and dancing and feeling our passion in our bodies, and we did this big ecstatic spell and poured all that energy into this bowl of water, which we could then take home. And so I have had my passion water on my creativity altar since then. And I have been putting some into my painting water, because I identified that night at Passion that I wasn't, although I am an artist and that is my job, I'm not making time just to do art that I love. Every moment I was thinking about the website and the Etsy shop and the book contract and blah, 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 all these like, oh, work, and the market stall and this and this and this. And I was always making for an end result, not making for the joy of making, even though that happens while I'm making. Like, I friggin' love making art, but there was always an end in sight. And real passion for me and my creativity is that when I can drop in and tap down and just let the material and let spirit come in and like just let this thing come, because it's play. And that's what word came for me that whole week, was the word play. And so I started painting for myself, because I really, really love painting, and it's something that I've always seemed to have struggled with a bit more than drawing and sculpting. Like, painting feels like I've got some issues I need to work through with paint, and I think it comes from studying painting at university, which was such a toxic environment. For me anyway. It did not work at all. And every time I approach a canvas now, I have just got all these critics in my head and university lecturers' voices and a big pile of not good enough. But I love paint. Oh my gosh, squeezing colour out of a tube and smushing it on something is so divine, that feeling. And so I was like, I want to tap into my passion for painting and just paint again. Because I hadn't done a painting all year, I don't think. I really don't think I have. And it's September now? That's sad. Anyway, I have this book, the book, and I think I've showed it to you before in a Book of Shadows video, perhaps. And when I did the burning of the things, this was this book. So I decided I would start painting in here and just feel in and paint. And so I started painting the Iron Pentacle words, and it was so funny popping this outside on the balcony to dry, but even having the word sex written so big, it was like, oh, which shows I still have so much work to do with sex. Like, oh my God. Anyway, work in progress, life in progress. We have self, and it was just so lovely to paint. It was so lovely just to paint for love, just to put paint and mush in this book. It was so freeing and lovely and joyful. There was a lot of play here. So I started doing this for the week of passion. I then also spent one week and I gave myself a Sunday to just play with paint. And I started in the book, and you have to, with paint, wait for the layer to dry sometimes before you can go on with the second layer, otherwise it all blends together. And so I thought, I'll get a canvas out and start working on this canvas. And I really went, whoa, the energy was so different from painting in my book compared to painting on a canvas. Excuse me, I need a tea. And so because I had gifted myself some time that afternoon, I really sunk in and sat with what was it that was coming up, what needed to process, what was this feeling I was having. And it was this feeling of, in this book, it's safe. This book is for nobody but me. This book is totally the epitome of play. And whenever I'm confronted with a canvas, that fear of that end project comes in, the fear of the university critic again, the gallery wall, and all the rude people I have met in the painting world. And yeah, it lost the play for me. And so I decided that I would paint on this canvas and not show anybody. I would paint and paint and paint and fall back in love with paint. And you know what? I have painted this painting, and I shared a picture of it, I think, just this week, for the first, and it's nearly finished now. So that was, maybe I started it for a month ago. And I finally went, you know what, I'm ready to share it now, because I really want to share it, not because I need to be egged on or I need the encouragement. I share it because I actually really love the painting, and so I'll share it with you now. And you know what is the most beautiful thing is that in painting this one, there was no inner critic in my head. There was no meanness. It was just about the joy of remembering this holiday I'd had in the rainforest, enjoying going back to why I drew this picture in my art journal and wanting to put that onto a canvas. It was there's so much love in here. And I was like, wow, that really is passion at work. And you know, maybe it's got to do with a little bit of that spell water being placed onto the canvas. Maybe it's a little bit because I spent that time, every time I sat and painted, I did it for love rather than worrying. I don't know what happened, but painting her has been a really joyful thing. I don't know if she's finished yet. She's at that point where I'm not sure, which means she's probably pretty close. I need to hang her on the wall and see if she annoys me. Usually if they annoy me, I know that I have to tweak it a bit or do some finishing touches or whatever. But maybe she's done, and what a lovely thing to get to come back to is that love of paint again. So yay, hopefully I can paint some more paintings this year. So the next week after passion was pride, and pride is fire, and it's about I can. And pride was a really tricky one for me because I've always been really hesitant and reserved about not turning into a creepy ego person. And I've always, you know, in Australian culture, pride is not something that is celebrated at all. It's totally, you're tall poppy syndrome, or he's got a big head, or or she's full of herself, or, you know, all those sort of things like, oh, pull your head in, you're full of yourself. Like, I don't ever recall hearing anything good about the word pride. Like, pride always felt like a pride of lions. That's probably the only time I've heard the word pride in a beautiful way. Otherwise, pride's always felt probably as uncomfortable as sex for me. But then when I tune into that idea of a pride of lions, you know, I can bring in my like inner Mufasa and just stand up a little bit taller. And what pride I learnt through the course of Iron Pentacle is that pride is about being right-sized in the world. And pride is about, I can be in pride and it doesn't take away from anyone else being in pride. It's not ego, it's almost linked to that power idea, I guess. But yeah, pride is about being right-sized in the world. It's not hiding away, and, you know, and I probably have done that in not wanting to be an ego person. I've, you know, who knows? It's such a little balancing beam of trying to keep yourself in check. And I guess the work of Iron Pentacle helps keep us in check so we don't turn into this crazy egomaniac. Please, no more. No more of those people in the world. The next week was power, and power is earth, and I affect was the quote we had for power. And what I found for power was that the message came through that it was about presence, which made sense when I thought about it from the idea of earth, like it's that stillness. Power was a really tricky week for me. I ended up having a panic attack in the classroom. Fabulous. It you know, and that just brought up all sorts of vulnerability, and yeah, very interesting. And so it's about looking at power over, power within, and power with. And that are the three different types of power that within Iron Pentacle that we looked at. And I think my fear of power over and what that has felt like in my life and how I have seen that enacted in society and in the world in general made me really quite adverse to power. But coming into my witchcraft practice, power felt like something I understood power within, and I understood power as something like to be empowered. It felt like a very beautiful thing, but power over still frightened me, and it's not something I ever want to entertain, and it's something that feels very frightening and hurtful when I see it externally. And so yeah, very interesting, big stuff to move through and look at. And I guess that's the magic of Iron, and that's because it, like they said in the introduction to their book, it's concepts that we're all touched by, and it's just realities of being a human in this life. And if we can get these into alignment and harmony within ourselves, we're just better, sovereign, authentic people. Like, we'll just be able to go about the world in a more empowered way, and it's freaking awesome. So at the end of the course, we did a ritual, like an initiation ritual to Iron, and it was a ritual that the participants created, and then we invited the facilitators to be a part of it. And it was a ritual to invite Iron to be to walk with us for the rest of our life is what I took away from it. It was to kind of open the doorway to Iron being a companion for me now. That it's kind of like Iron is a creature, a spirit, an entity that can come and be with me and help me be in alignment. And I made these little black candles with a pentacle on them for everybody in the class. So I haven't burnt mine yet. I'm not sure when I will do that. Maybe some anniversary point of this workshop, or when the time calls, when Spirit of Iron calls and says, "Get to work, Missy." Probably. Who knows? So that's Iron Pentacle really for this round. I'm sure every round is going to be more and more different, crazy, intense, strange, and it's very interesting to look at and explore, and I highly recommend that you go and look at and explore Iron Pentacle and Reclaiming Magic if anything in this video has been of interest for you. I'll pop some links down for my Australian witches of where you can find out more about reclaiming shizzle, and pretty sure, because it's worldwide, that there'll be reclaiming groups wherever you happen to be watching this video from if you're not an Australian witch. Speaking of, I think it's like 2 weeks I'm going to be at Witch Camp here in Melbourne, and the beautiful Eris, a fellow YouTuber and witchy sister from Perth, is flying over, and we're going to Witch Camp together, and I am so excited. I'm so excited. Yay. So yeah, I guess I'll be chatting more with you again about maybe I'll share a video about what the hell was Witch Camp. Okay, well, that's me. That's today. It's been a long one. If you've made it all the way to the end, you're amazing. Okay, thanks guys. Thanks for being here.